Hello, everyone, and welcome to URAC's Telehealth Accreditation programs, what you need to know to get started. We're here today to walk through the parts of the URAC accreditation process, from getting started, from signing our accreditation agreement, to submitting documents, to even what happens after you've been accredited. I am excited to be joined by the following team members who are going to raise their hands and say hello. We've got Dr. Sean Griffin. He's our president and CEO here at URAC.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We've got Sheila Brunson from our business development team.
Hello.
We've got Tanya Bennett, who is one of our accreditation reviewers.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
And we've got Dr. Diane Sacco, who's another one of our accreditation reviewers. Tanya and Diane are specifically accreditation reviewers on our telehealth programs. They know this program inside and out. Sheila, I'm going to turn the floor over to you to tell us a little bit about URAC.
Sure. So good afternoon and welcome. I'm Sheila Brunson, and if you're new to URAC, I'll be your first point of contact for URAC's digital health accreditation and certification programs. I've been with URAC for 13 years and have national responsibility as the business development executive in digital health accreditation. As I work with clients, I've noticed that most first-time applicants have many of the same questions and apprehensions. Our team is here today to answer some of those commonly asked questions. I'm here today to tell you about who we are and why we believe in accreditation. As you can see on your screen, URAC is more than 30 years old, having just celebrated our 30th anniversary. We are an independent accreditor and we do not provide consulting services. We believe that we don't need to tell you, we believe you don't need us to tell you what policies and procedures is best for your organization. We provide support to our clients, including educational webinars and a dedicated client relations manager to guide you through the process. We pride ourselves on keeping the accreditation process fair and completely free of bias. Our reviewers, some of whom you'll meet during this webinar, are all clinicians themselves and average 20 years of experience in healthcare. The majority of our reviewers have been with URAC for at least 5 years and are experts in our programs and what makes high quality healthcare. Our clients have consistently told us that they value the URAC accreditation or certification for some of the reasons you see on the screen. The standards for our programs were developed by leading industry experts in fields of technology and healthcare. Meeting these standards is something your organization can celebrate. URAC offers a wide variety of digital health accreditations and certifications. In just a minute, URAC's President and CEO, Dr. Sean Griffin, will tell you a little bit more about our different telehealth programs. It is my role to help you figure out which accreditation or certification is right for you. Here's a small sample of some of our telehealth clients. As you can see, we have a wide variety of organizations, including health systems, medical technology companies, and mental and behavioral health providers. And it's nice to have and see some of our accredited clients here today. So welcome.
I realize there's a lot on this slide, so we'll leave it up just for a second so you can see who's here. If you work for one of these places, please just say hi in the chat box. We'd love to know that you're here.
Diane, Tanya, and Sean will be sharing more about the URAC accreditation process in just a few minutes. But you can see here a brief overview of how your application is processed. After you submit your application information, your URAC assigned reviewer will start a desktop review of the application, following up with a request for information, if necessary, and scheduling a validation review. Because these digital health programs, all validation reviews are conducted virtually. Once the validation review is complete, your reviewer will submit blinded application to URAC's Accreditation Committee for final determination. URAC's Accreditation Committee meets twice a month, and we notify our clients within 14 to 45 days of committee decision. Sean, I'll now give you the floor to talk a little bit about our telehealth accreditation and certification programs and the differences between them.
Thank you very much, Sheila. I appreciate that. This is my more normal voice. I was, had a little helium when I said hello early on. I've been on about 3 or 4 webinars today, so I'm a little bit punchy this late in the afternoon. But I just want to welcome everybody. I see in the chat box a number of organizations that we've worked with in the past. Christiana Care up in I think it's Delaware. There was a doc up there named, I think, Dan Elliott, who I once worked with in a previous role, and just hi to him. I think he's up there in the ACO. But let me tell you about URAC's digital health programs. URAC is very proud that we were one of the leaders in telemedicine before telemedicine got to be cool during the pandemic. And when you think about our digital health programs, it's really important that you look at what we're talking about when we say telehealth, because some people, when they talk about telehealth, they think it's all just one thing. We recognize the differences in the market that are reflective as to the business models that are being used right now. So when it comes to our telehealth accreditation, there's 3 modules, and those modules are consumer to provider, provider to consumer, or provider to provider. And let me explain what those mean. Consumer to provider is that sort of on demand, I connect to somebody on the web and I have a care interaction. Provider to consumer is when you already have a relationship with the provider. Maybe they're your regular primary care doc, like I used to be a primary care doc, and you're just doing a digital visit, but you have a different relationship also with them. And then there's provider to provider. This is when a provider who's not in an office is coming in and generally doing a consultation. Now, the reason why those are different modules is because there's different responsibilities there. If you're seeing somebody for the first time, you need to find out about how they handle your protected health information. You have to understand HIPAA. There's a different consent model and all those sort of things that have to be taken care of. Whereas if you see that doctor in the office, you've already signed all those papers. That's part of that stack that you sign the first time that you go into their office. If it's provider to provider, we already know the setting that's going on. And so that's why we have those 3 different modules, and our standards are reflective of the different needs. And down below that, it lists the standards. If you were just sitting at home and maybe when the pandemic hit, you'd never done telemedicine and you're inventing your own program to do telemedicine, you're going to think of a lot of things. You're going to think about, how do I hook up the video camera? How do I document? How do I bill? Those sort of things. But you may not think of some other things, such as risk management. You may not think of infrastructure. You may not think of device quality, those sort of things, tracking your quality metrics, those sort of things. And that's really where coming to URAC helps you to build out a full program and not just be focused on a bunch of cameras and a bunch of screens, because bad medicine on a cool camera is still bad medicine. The other thing that we offer is not just the telehealth accreditation, but the telehealth support services certification. And what that is that's the hardware, the devices, the back office support. So maybe you're a vendor and you go in and somebody white labels your program and they bring the providers and you just bring all the technical expertise. Well, that's not really telehealth accreditation. That's more the support services certification. And we built that because of the fact that we saw that within the marketplace, some providers were saying, I've got this vendor who wants to sell me services. Are they any good? So they could be certified by URAC to provide good services, and then your program could be accredited for the full scope of care. And I think it's really important that you understand those differences. Now, when you start doing telehealth, you start seeing things about remote patient monitoring. Remote patient monitoring is more the devices where you're using an FDA-approved device and where you're doing things, remote monitoring. It could be hospital at home. It could be things like that. And that's really a different set of standards. Now, there's a lot of overlap there, the business requirements, the professional oversight, clinical workflows, those sort of things. But that's different than telemedicine. And so that's why we have the 3 programs that we have. And when you talk with a sales representative, the good thing is Sheila knows the difference, and we can ask you the questions, and we can ask about your business model, and we can work through those things. And even if you don't talk to one of our salespeople, you can go onto the web and you can look at our standards at a glance, and you can see what makes up a full program for telemedicine, and not just a platform where you can have a video visit.
Sean, thanks so much. I think, we separate by the remote patient monitoring really being that formal ongoing program and that ongoing relationship that we have. And we know in the consumer to provider module, some of these may just be one-off visits. So it's really separating the continuity of care over time.
Well, I think it's also important to say that with the pandemic, a lot of people jumped into this business, and some of the people who jumped into this business don't know healthcare. They were from device companies, or maybe they saw a chance to make a quick buck. And so we really want to say that if you're in this marketplace and you want to distinguish yourself of being a robust program, if you want to be above and beyond, then accreditation really is a way for you to demonstrate that you're doing more than simply somebody who just showed up. And even some other accreditors launched programs because of the pandemic, and we're on our third version of accreditation or in telemedicine, just to show that we were here before it was cool. We, when it came to do our standards, we had great organizations that helped us and great experience to lean on. So we really know the territory when it comes to these programs.
Thanks, Sean. And Sean, your timing with Laura Wood, our Director of Marketing Communications, timing is perfect. As you were saying things, she was chatting in links to our standards at a glance for telehealth accreditation, telehealth support services. We really do have the best team on here to answer your questions. And if we don't get to it today, we will get back to you generally about 24 to 48 hours. That being said, we have a set of questions that we've put up to answer, but my style, I'm an educator by trade, training, and love. I don't like people to have to wait to have a question answered. You may have a question at the beginning of the webinar, and I don't want you to have to wait until the end. So please chat your questions into the chat box as they come to you. It may actually fit better somewhere in what we're going through. So we are here to answer your questions. We want this to be for you. We know our process. You are here to learn from us and see if this is the right fit for you. Somebody may answer your question in the chat box. We have a whole team on here, as you've seen. So let's get to it. Tanya, I'm going to ask you to pull back your camera. Sean, I think you can go off for a little while, although you're welcome to stay on and cheer on the team here. Awesome. We've got Tanya and Diane, the awesomeness of this group here. Diane, as the first question for you, we're going to talk about the accreditation process to start with, and we're going to timing. We'll go into our frequently asked questions, and we'll talk about what happens afterwards. Again, yes, you will receive a link to the recording. We will hopefully get that out to you by the end of the week. And anybody who registered for the webinar gets that a little bit ahead of time, and then we'll put it up on the website for everyone probably about the end of next week or so. So Diane, first question here. We know going through accreditation can seem a little bit daunting at times. If you're new, if this is the first time you've done it, Sean put up those standards that we have to meet. There's a lot in the guide, but one of the things that we really talk about at URAC all the time, we pride ourselves, is that we're a supportive environment, and we want people to learn from the process. We want to be your partners along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about what resources are available to support an applicant through the URAC review process?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Signing the contract unlocks an assortment of resources, many of which follow you throughout your relationship with URAC. The first is the assignment of a client relations manager, or a CRM. Your CRM provides continuity of contact regardless of where you are in the accreditation process. You'll also receive access to AccreditNet and the accreditation guide for your program. The accreditation guide is available to you as you prepare documentation for the desktop and validation review phases of the accreditation process. This includes the standards and elements of performance. It includes interpretive information and the sections demonstrating compliance for both desktop and validation review. If you review the URAC accreditation guide and still have questions, you can find the submitted inquiry link in your application in AccreditNet and on the URAC website. URAC reviewers will respond to your inquiries in writing. While URAC reviewers cannot function as your consultant, we are available to clarify standard interpretation questions that you may have as you go through the process. The URAC website also offers applicants a catalog of free webinars to choose from, ranging from detailed information about the review process and frequently asked questions. Please also visit URAC on YouTube, where additional helpful videos are housed.
Thanks, Diane. So you've told me about the resources. I know where I can go. I can watch these videos. At that point, Okay, I've started to understand this. Tell me what all is involved in submitted the application. And this is important. We know this is important to a lot of organizations before they make the decision. We also know that, you know, with it, it's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's doable. But we also know that organizations may make decisions about when to go through the accreditation process, depending on what resources are available.
You're right.
About the submission process.
Yes, you're right. Sometimes that can seem like a daunting process, particularly for organizations that have not had experience with accreditation in the past. But each standard element requires the organization to upload documentation as that evidence to meet the intent. That's what the reviewers look for. In most cases, that can be 1 or 2 documents. That's sufficient to demonstrate your organization's compliance with a standard. So that might mean a policy or a procedure, which could meet the intent. But in some instances, something like a program description, an organizational chart, maybe meeting minutes or sample reports may be helpful or even required. As you upload documentation for each standard, please continue to refer to Demonstrating Compliance Desktop Review in the accreditation guide, because that will point you in the right direction. While you certainly plan to take great care to provide the documentation listed, please also remember there is an opportunity to add additional documentation during that request for information or RFI process. And I think Sheila mentioned that. Your URAC lead reviewer will discuss that on the introductory communication. When uploading your documents, please include specific citations. The citations serve to direct your reviewers to exactly where your organization's policies and documents meet the intent of the standard, and they also may help minimize the RFI.
Thanks, Diane. So, Tanya, coming to you. We're in this second box from the left here, the desktop review. If you've never been through accreditation, what is a desktop review? What's URAC's desktop review? And why is it so important to the process?
Well, that's a very amazing question, Lisa, and it really is a question that comes from every applicant that we have, even those that are currently accredited. The desktop review is the period in which the accreditation journey, where URAC reviewers are assigned to review and score uploaded documents by the applicant. The lead reviewer will become the main point of contact and will set up an introduction call with the applicant and their team. They'll also start scoring the information that's been uploaded, and each element will be scored based on what they've provided. This goes back to the importance of citations, which Diane mentioned a little bit earlier. As a reviewer, I look for your citations in each document, whether it's a policy or a set of meeting minutes or a processes. When a reviewer scores an element as not met, we also provide issues and recommendations for what additional information is needed to meet that intent of the standard. Organizations will then have an opportunity to provide additional documentation, which may be revised policies, supplemental policies, or other forms of evidence of reporting. During this phase of the accreditation process, you can ask your reviewers any questions regarding interpretive language. Emailing them is the best way to present your question to them, and make sure to include details right down to the Roman numeral. The goal of the desktop review is to not only make sure that you understand what is required to meet the intent of each standard, but that you also have the documented process to comply with each. Understanding the standard and doing the work to fine-tune the associated processes helps you prepare for the validation review. And that about sums it up, Lisa.
It's not a webinar if I'm not on mute at some point. Tanya, Mary Beth is asking a question, the time frame for the steps. And Mary Beth, I'm going to ask you to hold off on that because we've got 4 questions all about the timeline coming up in after the next 2 questions. So we are there and we will walk you all through it. Tanya, we've made it through the desktop review. You've gotten there successfully. The validation review, this is, and actually it's not on site because we're in our digital health suite here. But tell me a little bit about the validation review. What happens there, especially because it's not an on-site visit, so it's not what others may have considered a traditional on-site review if you've gone through an accreditation before.
Okay, validation review is the next most important step. After providing all the documentation, now you've got to show us how you do what you said you do. The validation review is conducted by the same reviewers that worked with your organization on the desktop review. An agenda is typically sent ahead of time, which clearly outlines what to expect during the validation review. It is generally of one partial day and will consist of telemedicine encounter demonstrations, an interview with key individuals such as the technical director and clinical director, as well as the IT security process, including credentialing file review. The goal of the validation review is to confirm that your day-to-day operations actually reflect the documented processes that you provided during the desktop review.
Tanya, one more for you in this
Okay.
set here. What happens after the validation review? I've gone through it, and now is there something else before my decision?
There absolutely is, Lisa. After the validation review, the findings are summarized and presented in a blinded fashion to URAC's Accreditation Committee, also known as the AC, which is made up of volunteers representing accredited organizations. URAC staff facilitates this meeting, but we are not involved in the voting process. We are not voting members. It is the Accreditation Committee that makes the accreditation decision, and you will be notified by email once that determination is rendered, and that email will go to the point of contact. That email will include the start date of your 3-year accreditation cycle.
So Tanya, for those who may not be familiar, I realize we use the term in there, blinded. What does it mean when we say blinded?
So when we say blinded, what we mean is that the accreditation committee only knows you as the application number that you were assigned. It does not provide a name nor a region of the country that the organization is in. So when we say blinded, we truly mean blinded.
Great. I think that's, we pride ourselves so much, Sheila talked about this, on being fair in our accreditation process. And that's one of those ways we ensure true fairness. You just don't know what organization it is. So let's talk about timing. Timing really is everything. Timing here, and we know timing is, we know, hey, could I do this before the end of the year? Diane, let's talk, how long do you have to submit? Say you sign your contract today, which we hope somebody will, but maybe the end of the month is more realistic for some people here. But if I sign my application, how long do I have after that to submit my application once I sign that contract? And Diane, you are on mute now.
There we go. Thank you so much. That's a great question. Your contract will indicate the due date for when your application should be submitted. This is generally 3 months after your contract is signed. Keep in mind, however, that during that period, your CRM or client relations manager is available to you, as is the ability to submit interpretations, which I discussed recently.
And the interpretations portal is great. It's right up the top of our website. It says submit an inquiry. It goes right into our system. And it's right there. You can do it as you're working through it. So if something's not clear, it's helpful. Tanya, you're up next. Why does the review process take us 3 months? What's happening in that time?
Well, typically, the majority of the 6-month time frame is the time given to submit your application and working through the desktop review to make sure the organization's processes are in place and meeting the intent of the standard.
Awesome. And what if somebody wants to speed up the review process, Diane? How do you do that?
The best action that someone can take if they want to speed up that review process is to submit the application early. Again, that due date will be on the contract, and URAC will begin working on the application as soon as it's submitted.
Awesome. Things happen. I don't think any of us, 2 years ago would have known there was a pandemic coming and we were sitting here. We know organizations have had to adapt as best as they could over the past 15 months. That may have meant that for some places who were actually in the throes of telehealth all the time, it meant that they had to actually do telehealth as opposed to kind of working through accreditation. So what happens in that case if an organization says they need more time to submit their application?
Well, and we have had that situation. So we completely understand the circumstances do arise that require an extension. We do have an extension process available for a fee if you need more time to submit your application. That's a process that you would discuss with your client relations manager or CRM.
Sean, I'm going to ask you to come back on camera. Thank you very much, because this next slide has all three of you. There are many different ways to work through our accreditation. Do you recommend I work with an accreditation consultant? Dan, this one's for you.
Okay. It's certainly an option that you can utilize. We do see many organizations partnering with accreditation consultants. There are also those that choose to seek accreditation on their own, and both approaches can be successful in achieving accreditation. Just remember, if you're going to work with a consultant, please ensure that you make the policies your own. So what I mean there is don't depend solely on the consultant, because at the end of the day, you must own your own processes. And the URAC will validate your compliance with the standards at the validation review, which Tanya recently discussed.
And my understanding, correct me when I'm wrong here, is that the consultant may not be your point of contact.
You are correct. And the consultant may also not attend the validation review or respond to interview questions. You're exactly right.
Thank you. Thank you for that. You know, we know there are benefits both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So we leave it total up to you. And as Sheila mentioned, and as Sean will speak to if I ask him to, we do not provide consulting services. Sean, do you want to add anything onto that?
We don't provide consulting services, and that's really important. And I'm very proud of that, because if you pay somebody to be your consultant and then you go through accreditation with them, they're basically training you for a test that they're going to give you. And we think that's a conflict of interest. We don't do this job because we want to sell accreditations. URAC is here because we want to improve healthcare quality. And that means that we need to be independent. We don't sell consulting services. If you pay for an accreditation, you're not going to get another bill for the hours that we spend teaching you how to take our test. I really feel strongly about that. That's come under a lot of scrutiny. We are one of the rare accreditors that doesn't sell consulting, and we think that that makes us a little bit purer when it comes to the work that we do. But not that I feel strongly about that, but Lisa knew she had to get out of my way before I lost my mind on that question.
Sean, I appreciate you taking that, because it really does speak to our strengths. And you're up for the next question. So, okay, so it's time, and I see like, I'm a hospital or health system. We know we have a bunch of those friends on the call here. And it looks like my specialty pharmacy is not yet accredited. So what happens if I want to do, say, specialty pharmacy and telehealth, or telehealth and utilization management, or my contact center?
The short answer is we love you even more when that happens. You can do multiple URAC accreditations. We have different groups who work on the different accreditations. You can sign a contract. You can drop me a note and ask for a volume discount or something like that. But we treat each of these as its own special program. And now what you may find is that if you have a quality department and you do quality reviews, and you do the same quality department committee for telehealth as you do for your specialty pharmacy, some of your policies may be used in multiple accreditations. You may have the same clinical oversight group, which serves multiple accreditations. But doing multiple URAC accreditations, you don't have to do them all one after the other. You can do several at the same time if it's appropriate for your business.
And Diane or Tanya, I'm going to ask one of you to field this, because you actually see them. Are there places where one might be able to use the same document for, say, if I'm going through a contact center and I'm going through telehealth? Are there any areas of overlap in which they might say, yes, as an organization, this is actually going to make our lives a little easier?
Sure, I'll take that one, Diane. You absolutely can. URAC does not expect an organization to have URAC-specific policies and procedures. However, if you want to review the documents used for other programs that you may currently be accredited for or looking to accredit, just to ensure that the documents being provided cross over and still meet the instance standard, you absolutely can use those same documents.
Great. Diane or Sean, anyone want to add anything onto there?
No, I think that it's really important that you understand that, accreditation is not where one day out of 3 years, you're doing things right when people show up. It's about enabling you and educating you so that you have the best processes from a nation and a worldwide breadth of experience as to how to do telemedicine the best to serve your customers. And we want you to be good every single day that you're accredited, not just the day that we show up. And if your processes are good processes, they can be used in multiple programs, and we will help you to make them better. One of the things people ask me is, why does it take so long, and those sort of things. Remember that when it comes to organizations coming to us, there are some organizations that show up and they are great. They are fantastic. They have everything all tucked in and they know what they're doing. There's others who we have to help them for a while. We have to educate them as to what it should look like. And so we build in some of that space. If you have all your ducks in a row and you hit the ground running, you can go faster. But some people need to go slower because they're not quite ready for highway speeds when we meet them.
And that's where we do allow the 3 requests for information in there to say, let's do what it takes to get it right. I've heard from our clients who talk to us after the fact that they say, URAC really wanted me to learn and they wanted me to improve and they wanted me to get better along the way. And we are a better organization because of that. And that's going to get to my last slide. So I don't want to give away too much there. But Tanya, let me turn this back over to you. This is specific to our telehealth program. Do we have to use a URAC accredited organization to credential your telehealth providers? I know this is one of those big questions that comes up along the way while our clients are going through the accreditation process.
Okay, yeah, it absolutely is a question that is asked often. Absolutely not. There are several options for telehealth accreditation credentialing requirements. So you're not required to use a URAC accredited organization. A telehealth organization can meet the credentialing criteria by using URAC's Credentialing Verification Organization Accreditation. That's one. An organization who receives credentialing information from another source, like a hospital, must ensure that the provider is appropriately credentialed using the above criteria that we talked about. This may maybe demonstrated through a contract that they may have with them, that they're performing the credentialing process. It could be a delegation process, delegation meaning that you have hired or you've come into a contract with another entity that will provide those services under the functionality that you would typically do. And with that, you want to make sure that they are identifying the entity and describing the credentialing process that they have. You should include in that process as well oversight, how that oversight is going to be conducted, making sure that those terms of oversight is also included in the contractual relationship with them. So again, no, it's not a requirement. It's very helpful. It's definitely an advantage to it, but you're not required to have a URAC accredited organization for credentialing.
Thanks, Tanya. Let's go into round 2 of our frequently asked question. And Sean, these first 2 go to you. So companies change, companies are bought out all the time, every day. Does your accreditation transfer if the organization changes ownership?
The short answer is it depends. Isn't it wonderful when the short answer is it depends? You know, if a purchase of an organization is simply we changed our PO box and we have a new owner and nothing has changed, then probably that the accreditation needs to be reviewed if there's an ownership change. And how the accreditation will be handled depends upon how much has changed. If somebody buys your company, replaces all of your people, gets rid of all of your policies, well, then you shouldn't be accredited anymore. You just simply kept the name on the door. But if it is just a paperwork change and there's no fundamental change in what goes on, then it's probably going to transfer. But we need to look at it because remember that accreditation is our good name on your good name. And we want to make sure that somebody who doesn't deserve it doesn't get it. And so whenever there's a change, you have responsibilities for notification. We may take a look at your business structure, all those sort of things. And we want to make sure that you're still as good as you were when we checked on you. So the short answer is it depends, and it depends how severe the changes are that come with ownership.
Thanks, Sean. We make sure that it's very clear to you when you're in our accreditation system. If anything is changing, we have a notice of change form. It's in there, it's easy to fill out, and then we'll work with you. And depending on who it is, you'll work with your client relations manager or your reviewer along the way. And we'll talk about that. Actually, Diane, I'm going to ask you to take this next question because we're on change here and jump to the question about what if the point of contact changes? That point of contact is a huge component. That person who is the assigned organizational point of contact, that's a very big role for that person. But what happens if that person, people leave, people take new jobs, people move, what happens?
Absolutely. And that happens frequently. If your point of contact changes, it's very important that you do make that change and complete the notice of change form, which you mentioned, Lisa, because the point of contact is who all URAC communication will go to. So if that changes, please complete the notice of change form, which is available in your application in AccreditNet as soon as possible. If you don't see that, you can also simply contact your client relations manager for assistance.
Thanks, Diane. Sean, this is a big question that's on everybody's mind. They want to know about success rate. What percentage of organizations actually achieve our accreditation on their first try?
Well, I think it's important to understand that this is not a I jump on the scale one day and we haven't talked to you before. As you go through this process, we're helping you to get in shape. Think of this as like training for swimsuit season. You know, you don't want it doesn't just go from day one and you're ready. This is we're getting you in shape. We're making sure your policies, we're making sure you're following your policies, those sort of things. You know, there's requests for information, there's clarification, there's all of those sort of things. Usually by the time somebody gets to the accreditation committee and we're reviewing their stuff, they're going to pass. It's over 90%. Now, I will tell you that there are organizations who come to us and they say, we'd like to get accredited. And we look at them and we go, you're not even close. I mean, you don't even know what you don't know, and you're not prepared for it. And we may coach them and those sort of things, and they choose not to complete the accreditation process. But as you go through this, this is not meant to be a trick. This is meant to be, we talk to you about what makes this up. We show you how things are. You know, we've had people who say, you know, what kind of policy are we looking for and those sort of things, and we help them with that. But it's over 90%. And the important thing is that if you go to an accreditor, and every single organization in every accreditation they do passes 100% of the time, I would argue that they're probably not checking that closely. And I'm not sure that I want to be accredited by them because they sound like a rubber stamp. So if everybody passes accreditation, that's probably a warning sign for you as an organization. And if everybody fails, that's probably another problem. But when we work with you, when we take you through this process, when we help you to demonstrate your capabilities, and then we check on you, it's over 90%. And we expect to help people to improve quality to be accredited, because the goal is not to be accredited if you don't have the quality that's there.
Thanks, Sean. Sean, this last slide is for last questions here. It's for you. What's the best way to leverage an accreditation? You've made it, you've gotten this far, we've sent you the seal. What's the best way to leverage accreditation? What do you want to see organizations doing?
I think that the day that you get notified that you've been accredited, everybody on the team should go out and get tattoos with the URAC logo on them, and you should get biker jackets. No, I mean, if you have achieved URAC accreditation, if you've gone through this process, you should be trumpeting it from the mountaintops. We will send you a certificate. You should have a celebration. You should let employers in your area know. You should let your health plans that you contract with know. You should let your patients know. This is an achievement, and you should be celebrating it. I would take this into my contract discussions and say, we are an accredited telemedicine provider. We have shown our quality. It has been independently verified. That should mean better market share. That should mean, you know, as good a rates as you can get in your marketplace, all those sort of things. It is worth celebrating, and the team that goes through it should celebrate. It's a triumph. And so that's the best way to leverage your accreditation, is to celebrate it like you would any other award that you get, because this is not some rubber stamp. This is a celebration for what you've achieved.
Susie, I see your comment in there. Use it for when applying for grants. Absolutely. This is we are above and beyond. And telehealth is not a required accreditation. And some of you are new, some of you are leaders in the field. So all of those ways to take advantage of it. It's a great way to say to your community, look, we don't have to cancel appointments in a snowstorm necessarily. Yeah. We can reach, you can, Sean, yeah, take it over.
I was just going to say, one of the groups that we talked to quite a bit lately is employers, because employers were seeing all of this telehealth services being provided during the pandemic, and now they're starting to ask the question, is it any good? And to be accredited is to say, yes, it is good. It is appropriate. It is right. It is what we should be doing. And we've gone out to the national standards and we have been checked and we have gotten the thumbs up. So have that discussion with your employers, use it in your grant applications, all those sort of things, and use it to promote. I mean, if you were a top 100 hospital in heart surgery, how would you celebrate that? Well, if you're a top 100 hospital in accreditation for telemedicine, how would you celebrate that? They're very similar.
Laura is also chatting in. We highlight your achievements on our social media page. We're up there probably about 2 to 3 weeks after you're accredited. You will see us up there. We can do a shared press release with you. For some clients, we've done video testimonial, and you could take that and put it on your page and say what it means. Sean, I think there's also something about, and I'm going to tag you for this, and go back to that your rural health background, your community, and the reach that you can get by saying, look, our provider to provider program, let's talk about, I'm going to ask you to just use your telestroke example.
Okay.
What that means.
Yeah. So when you think about like telestroke or those sort of things, I trained in rural family medicine out in the Midwest. I was out in Iowa, and to be able to bring those services to underserved communities, whether they're rural, whether they're urban, is a source of pride for an organization. And we've worked with some of the leaders in rural telemedicine who've helped to shape our standards and to shape our programs. And when you do that, and when you bring those services to your community, I think it's important to tout that. Because what we're seeing is, there are large national organizations that are seeing telemedicine as their way to bring their services into your community. And if they are accredited, they're going to say, we're accredited by URAC. And if your hospital says, well, we're not accredited, there's a market differentiator there. And it's like being a top 100 hospital. What if you're a top 100 hospital in telemedicine, your clientele knows that they're getting the best service and they're getting it from local providers. So I would encourage you, if you're a small hospital, if you're a small organization, and you're looking to telemedicine, talk to us, because we recognize the different challenges. None of our standards say that you have to have 45 people on your quality committee, but we say you need to have a quality committee, because we want to be flexible so that people in all sorts of communities can get the best care possible, which is what the accreditation is designed to provide.
I love that. And Diana or Tanya, I'm going to ask you to chime in here, where I'm going to say about, our flexibility is, we don't have a scripted, you must submit X document. We say, you must meet the intent of this standard. Tanya, I see you're nodding, so I'm going to ask you to take that one first, see if you want to add anything onto it.
Well, absolutely. At URAC, we are not prescriptive. So we don't lay the groundwork. We don't give you a platform that's cookie cutter that says you have to put this, and this in any particular order. We give the flexibility to the applicant to describe what they do and how they do it, and have a process in place to ensure that the intent of the standard is being met. We have large organizations, and then we've got small mom and pop. They'll never have the exact same language. So you want to give them the flexibility and the opportunity to write it in their own words that actually reflect the process that they do. And as long as it meets the intent of the standard, you're fine.
Diane, anything you want to add on there?
That's an important factor. Because of that flexibility, one thing I would add is that's why we as reviewers ask that you please include that citation, because your documents, you're looking at the standard, the accreditation guide, and where in that document, which could be 10 pages, it could be 50 pages, it could be 2 pages, but where the intent of that standard is met. So I would just say, because we want you to have that flexibility, and we understand that documents are going to be different depending on the organization, that citation is really important.
I think one of the things this allows our program to do is, it allows, you don't have to be we put some big names up there earlier, but you don't have to be one of those big names to be accredited in any of our programs. I think that's the nice thing about URAC. Sean, we work with big and small clients all day, every day. Diana and Tanya, you see them. That's the great thing, is you don't have to have a minimum number of staff, as Tanya said. If you're running a great program, like she said, Sean, a small rural hospital could have an excellent telehealth program so they can reach people out in the field where they need it most. Car accidents.
Yeah. One thing that I want you to go back in slides. I want you to go back to our list, and I want to show the middle organization at the bottom of that slide that we talked about before. So URAC has been accrediting in the United States for years, and when we started doing more telemedicine, we came to the attention of people across the country. We've done webinars in Europe, we've done webinars in the Middle East, and we actually were approached by an organization right there at the bottom, Ain Shams University in Egypt. And they came to us and they said, we would like to go through your telemedicine accreditation because we see ourselves as being a key telemedicine provider in the continent of Africa. And to think that what we were doing, the work that we were doing, I mean, we like to know that here at URAC, we influence care across the country and that we help to set standards that really shape how care is being delivered. But then to have organizations come to us from overseas and say, we would like to take your standards and use it to drive better care in Africa was just tremendous for us. And they went through the process and they are accredited. And I am proud of the work that they did, and I'm proud of the care that they deliver to their community. But we also have, University of Mississippi Medical Center, a great organization down there in Mississippi, and they're doing fantastic work. And so it's important that you look at all the organizations that we do. I think of this, and my team has heard this before. When I was practicing, the most people that I could affect their care was about 6,000 people in a year was the number of people that I could touch directly in providing care. Through our programs at URAC, we're providing care for millions and tens of millions and probably a couple 100 million people, either directly or indirectly, because of the care that we influence. And that's fantastic. And that's why we care so deeply about this, and why we want to make sure that this is important. And government regulators are reaching out to us and they're saying, right now we're paying for telemedicine because of the pandemic. How can we tell the good players from the bad players when it comes to telemedicine? And they're asking us about our programs, and we're going to have to see how things shake out and what gets paid for in the future. But we are the leading telemedicine accreditor. The states talk to us, countries talk to us, overseas talks to us, and we want to share our experiences with organizations that want to meet that top level. So thank you for going back on those slides, Lisa, and you can zip forward to where you were. Sorry about that.
Sean, I love this slide actually, because it just shows the variety in who we have up here. It's not all hospitals and health systems. We've got telepsychiatry up there. We know telehealth has helped in the field of mental health and behavioral health exponentially over the last year. So we are thrilled to see the different providers. We've got a pediatric group up there, virtual ERs. We've got United Health Services. I will tell you, I've spoken with them several times. They've built their program on the URAC standards. They've said, we want something, we believe in URAC, we're going to do this. Susie commented here, this is just makes all of us here at URAC super happy. So thank you, Susie. Due to the increase in virtual visits, more reimbursement requests, CMS is auditing more programs. Accreditation really makes sure you have your programs, set up your programs with appropriate elements and quality metrics to build. And Stephanie, love seeing ProMedica wants to add your name to the list in the future. I've got a spot right here for you. We're going to wish you best wishes going through the accreditation process. We're excited to work with you through there. Sean, talk to me quality. Talk to me. You said it kind of at the beginning. What does accreditation mean for quality?
Well, I think that during the pandemic, the gates were thrown open, licensure requirements were lifted, on-site visits were lifted, all those sort of things. And when I think about accreditation, I always say that I think that regulation sets the bar for safety, and accreditation sets the bar for quality. And I think there's even room for excellence beyond that. And accreditation, when I was licensed, I was board certified in family medicine, and I practiced in Missouri and Iowa, and I was licensed in Missouri. And technically, because I was licensed, I could do anything in medicine. But I should not be doing your heart surgery. I wasn't trained in it. Licensure was sort of the minimum regulatory safety bar, but accreditation or board certification was a higher bar. And when we think about quality, this is a great quote. The comment we hear most after accreditation is achieved is, "Thank you for making us better." This is not intended as a trick. We put these standards out there. We share our standards at a glance because we want to guide people who are looking at building it best. We talk to employers, we talk to regulators, we will share our experiences. I mean, if you guys want to hop on a webinar and talk to us and find out stuff, we're happy to do that. But quality is what we're trying to do. Every single person that's part of our team, when I talk to them about URAC, I say that URAC has been here for 30 years. We have government deemed programs. We do everything from utilization review to specialty pharmacy to telemedicine to mental health parity. And we're only in places where we believe that our involvement can raise the level of care that people receive, and that's why we do it. If we were looking to just make a little bit of a difference, we wouldn't take on the hard work that it is to try and shepherd all of these organizations and to share these standards and those things. We don't sell consulting. We're not planning on getting rich doing this. We try and avoid conflicts of interest. We blind your application. We help you define the policies that apply. And our job is to help you to understand accreditation, to understand quality so that you can deliver better care. When the pandemic hit and everybody was like, oh, telemedicine, that's where to go, and people are spinning up programs, it was like, please take a look at what we've learned. We've already been here for a while. We know the territory, we know what a good program looks like, and we want to help you to be a better program.
And we even made some adjustments. We released a new version of our telehealth accreditation. So you all are getting at this point the most recent telehealth 3.0. We released it last summer, ready for you. Sean, this is a really interesting question. It's a little bit more on the policy side of things, but it's coming from Gemma Lowery. Based on the contacts you've been hearing from, are we fearing the telehealth cliff? Do you think some people are waiting on accreditation until the modality is more formalized into the payer landscape? There are a lot of players in here, a lot of people who want to have opinions about this.
Yeah. I think that, everybody's sort of saying, I mean, we're located in Washington, D.C. We're 8 blocks northeast of the White House. We go over to Capitol Hill, we talk to regulators and those sort of things. Telemedicine is going to change. When the pandemic hit and when doors were shut, video screens opened up is what happened when it came to providing care. And we saw some people who did it great, and we saw some people who did it terribly. Those who had actually gone through accreditation will tell you that when the pandemic hit, they were better prepared for the influx of patients because of what they had done in accreditation. We had one organization that said, when we had to credential all of these providers all at once, we went to our answers that we gave to URAC during the accreditation process, and we had told them how we were going to do it, and that was our playbook. That's what we intend to do. It's really easy to sail the boat when there's barely a breeze, but when the storm hits, it's really nice to have the experience. And you can learn from our experience, and you can learn from other organizations' experience to do this. Now, where payment goes with telemedicine, where licensure goes and those sort of things, the federal government's going to have to determine how many of these controls they're going to put back on. And the more they put back on, the less that telehealth will happen. But there's very clearly research that shows that telemental health is actually probably better in some cases when it comes to access, when it comes to the less stigma. For children's care, love working with children's hospitals who are interested in telemedicine, because it's really tough to haul a 3-year-old into a doctor's office for a post-op surgical check when they just need to be seen on camera and somebody needs to check their wounds. So there's places where it's going to stay. There's places where there's going to be less of it. And if you work with URAC, you're going to be best prepared for whatever the future holds in telemedicine. We have a great team. First of all, I want to thank everybody who came onto this webinar, because we know that time is your most valuable asset, and to take some of your time out of your day to come and be with us and to hear what we're talking about, we think it's really important. We are the #1 telemedicine accreditor in the United States, with hands out to the world, trying to share what we see as the best practices. We would like to help you to take better care of your communities, no matter where they are. We think that what we're doing it's our 3rd version of it. We know it pretty well. We're the experts when it comes to this. And if there's any questions that you have, if there's anything that we can help you with, let us know. If you want to do accreditation and you want to have that conversation, we'd love to talk to you too. But even if it's just sort of, look at our standards at a glance, see the things that we have done, we want to help to elevate and educate regarding best practices when it comes to telemedicine. And we thank you for your time.